Alright, first off, I'd like to say all praises to Yahweh Hashem Shai. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Stone. And shalom to the brothers in the highways and byways pushing this word in all sincerity and truth. The sisters, the believers, the helps, right? Um, Basically just coming with another lesson, right? And this lesson is going to show the apostle Paul exercised Matthew 10 verse 16, right? And I'll also give some historical reference to what the whole gravity of the situation, showing how Rome basically was basically occupied the land of Jerusalem, and how they had garrisons, and basically you had to be careful in that time how you basically conduct yourself, right? And also how Paul used him, was wise as a serpent, and basically escape a very severe beating, right? So just going straight into it. And when the 7 days were almost ended, the Jews which were of Asia, when they saw him in the temple, stirred up all the people and laid hands on him. Right? So some people, or some Jews where they live in these foreign lands, right, of Asia, right? Where they acknowledge a Paul, and they basically them are one who spread the rumor, say, oh, Paul a teach, say, oh, then if you keep the law and all them things, say, them basically see him in the temple, and because them they just zealous for the law and basically never understand what him do, right? Them basically start cause people to come against Paul. And this is how them do, them crying out, men of Israel, help, this is the man that teacheth men everywhere against the people and the law, and that this place and this place, and further brought Greeks also into the temple and had polluted the holy place. So all in all, this as you say, upstore start going, right? A big thing start Europe. But really and truly, if you know nothing about about the Jews back then, right, or the one of them where they in the land, them consider the Gentiles, Israelite foreigners, as polluted, and them call them uncircumcised, them call them castaway, them call them dogs, right? As the Ella Gabar they bring out couple of years back, I'm sure that that them say, oh, it better for eat pork than to speak Greek, right? And if people were zealous of the law, right? It says something like that, that we show how much them despise the ways of the Israelite foreigners, and rightly so. But the whole thing is, it was time for repentance. That them never did open the doors of repentance, right? Verse 29. For they had seen before with him in the city Trophimus, an Ephesian, whom they supposed that Paul had brought into the temple. So the whole fact say, oh, them say, oh, Paul bring them people where they despise in a temple, where them say, oh, no word if you go in a temple, and I say Paul pollute the temple. All hell basically break loose right there and then, right? And all the city was moved, and the people ran together, and they took Paul and drew him out of the temple, and forthwith the doors were shut, and they went about to kill him. So you see that? Them basically start kill Paul with the right, left, and center, yo, just because him there was what was required. But this is the thing now, this is the key point. It says, tidings came unto the chief captain of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. Now, here what I think now, when the Romans them occupy Jerusalem, riots and skirmish, them be afraid of riots, right? Because them the people them they under oppression, and a whole heap of riots and outbreaks used to take place where them have to quell. So the whole fact say you uproar in the city now, them don't know if a riot, they don't know war going, and basically them were in charge, they want to trouble because they want to report to them superiors, say, look here, we have troubles in Jerusalem, and the reason why them get sent in Jerusalem have to keep the people them under order, right? So here you have the Romans get dispersed. Now may I prove, oh, I'm sure it's the chief captain of the band was a Roman, right? So this are going at this definition for chief captain. Make it play.
Strong's G 5506. Chiliarchas. Chiliarchas.
And this is what the second definition says: the commander of a Roman cohort, a military tribunal, right? So basically, the chief captain, which was the Roman commander the commander of a Roman cohort, right? We soon get what's a Roman cohort, and of the band that all Jerusalem was in an uproar. So basically, him and the man already in charge if you keep the peace, basically, and we'll get that too. It says, who immediately took soldiers and centurions and ran down unto them. And when they saw the chief captain and the soldiers, they left beating of Paul. Right? So when the Romans then basically appear now, them stop. Because them know say, yo, if them try nothing, when the Romans are trying to quell the unrest, people can basically get put to death. So them stop. Right? So you see who the chief go down there with? He said he takes soldiers and centurions. Now we're gonna play a short video and get some light on this the chief captain and the centurion, right? Yeah.
Main types of soldier. A legion. There are two main types of soldier. A legionary is a Roman citizen, an auxiliary is not. Each must supply his own equipment and swear an oath of loyalty to the emperor. Legionaries join an infantry unit as part of a group of 8 men, a contubernium, who all share sleeping quarters. New soldiers are stuck with fatigues, dirty jobs, until they secure a specialist post. 10 contubernia form a century, with its own standard bearer, commander of the watch, second in command, and a centurion to lead them all. 6 centuries together make up a cohort.
So now you have what is a cohort. 6 centuries. So the chief captain basically had in his power the command of 6 centuries. That's why I tell us you can get the centurions and the soldiers. So it was a big thing. It was as I say, it was an uproar. So that them basically go out full force, right? So imagine what that 80 times 6. What that gonna 6 8 fuck. So you have 480 soldiers basically get summoned to this unrest, right? So we basically are gonna move forward with the scripture. So imagine that, right? Now going down this Acts 21 verse 33, right? Then the chief captain came near and took him and commanded him to be bound with 2 chains, and demanded who he was and what he had done. And some cried one thing, some another, among the multitude. And when he could not know the certainty of the tumult, he commanded him to be carried into the castle, right? And we're going to get some historical reference for the castle, because in the book Judea Trembles Under Rome, them explain this as well, right? And if you look on as a matter of fact, I'm play the Greek.
Strong's G 3925. Parembale. Parembale.
Right? And B says the barracks of the Roman soldiers which were at Jerusalem in the castle of Antonia, Salakia. Right? And when I read the book, it tells us how basically the best and the most secure place in Jerusalem for the Roman soldiers, because they basically in a enemy territory, basically. So them choose the best place in Jerusalem where the people them could sneak up on them and basically kill them, because really and truly people they hate the Romans, right? People they really and truly hate the Romans, right? Continuing, It says, and when he came upon the stairs, so it was that he was born of the soldiers for the violence of the people. And basically, this shows you how the Roman soldiers, they have to carry Paul up the stairs to how severely they have beat him up. So the men of the Lord used to always get persecuted just for doing what Yahushua basically beat them for do, right? But moving on, it says for the multitude of the people followed after, crying, away with him, right? So this is why basically them basically glad say him get caught, right? And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, may I speak unto thee? Who said, can thou speak Greek? And this was surprising to the chief captain, right? Art not thou the Egyptian which before these days made us an uproar and lead us out into the wilderness, 4,000 men that were murdered? So basically, in there get Paul confused with one zealot, right? Which also the book Judea Trembles Under Rome it going at that as well, right? So in there confuse him with a zealot, right? Which is an Israelite foreigner of Egypt, where basically they lead one rebellion. I think in the time of Pompey or before that, if I remember correctly, right? It says, but Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Sicilia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. Now this is a very important thing, right? The whole fact say, yo, Paul say one Jew of Tarsus, a city in Sicilia, a citizen, right? A citizen. This is the key thing. Him being a citizen of no mean city. And I beseech thee, suffer me to speak unto the people. So the whole fact say him tell him say him a citizen of Italy. The captain basically allow him to speak, right? Because he knows he start look upon Paul differently as a Roman. Now I'm gonna show why that necessary. As a matter of fact, after we go into chapter 22, just bear this in mind, and after chapter 22, we go more into the information, right? Verse 22. It says, and they gave him audience unto this word, and then lift up their voices and said, that after Paul and speak, away with such a fellow from the earth, for it was not fit that he should, it is not fit for that he should live. So basically, them tell him, say, they never take heed to all the testimony where Paul give them, they never take heed to it, right? And as they cried out and cast off their clothes and threw dust into the air, the chief captain commanded him to be brought into the castle and bade that he should be examined by scourging. And when you look up the word examine, basically in interrogation, right? Because then they want to find out what really happened. It says that he might know whereof they cried so against him. So they want to know where Paul do disturb. So they look upon Paul as a troublemaker, and they want to know why this happened. Also, basically if he confess what he do to the people, right? Why make such an uproar in the city, right? So then we basically plan to scourge him, and as we say, Yahushua was scourged, and basically the worst way to get beaten you, because I'm telling you that those who basically get scourged, them usually bleed out from that type of a whipping, right? It was very severe. And as they bound him with thongs, Paul said unto the centurion that stood by, is it lawful for thou to scourge a Roman, to scourge a man that is a Roman and uncondemned, right? And when the centurion heard that, he went and told the chief captain, saying, take heed what thou doest, for this man is a Roman. And when I do the history, I'm telling you that Roman citizens are basically Romans was not to be scourged, right? Everybody else gets scourged, but not people of Rome. So just like how a man goes to boom and say, when Americans go to certain places, say I am American, and people treat them different, or the same thing with Rome. But then once a man say I'm a Roman, people basically take heed because them no want do not, and then the governors or the emperors of Rome here and basically come down on them, because Rome was a fierce power, right, at the time. And when the and then the chief captain came and said unto him, Tell me, art thou a Roman? And he said, Yea. And the chief captain answered, With a great sum obtain I this freedom. And Paul said, I was born free. Right? So we're going to take a look into Roman society a little bit and just go through this. So this is from the Wikipedia Online Dictionary. It says social class in ancient Rome. It says social class in ancient Rome was hierarchical, but there were multiple and overlapping social hierarchies, right? And an individual's relative position in one might be higher or lower than in another, right? The status of freeborn Romans during the Republic was established by ancestry, the patricians and the plebeians. Now, as it said earlier, as it said up more, it said that them are free Romans, right? The patricians were basically the ruling class, the rich, and the plebeians basically the patricians were like for example census and rank based on wealth and political privilege, with the senatorials and the equestrians. But basically the senatorials were those of the Senate, and the equestrians were basically rich, very rich Romans, right? But but some of them were also in the Senate as well, and basically some of them we even lead military campaigns, because them pay for it and would be even in charge of a whole Roman legions, right? For example, in the series Spartacus, Marcus Crassus, when him basically they go off a Spartacus, him basically say, him a go use him own money for run the campaign ultimately, right? So he was a equestrian, and he would go back to even knights. Right, so you should know a knight as somebody were responsible for military. I said that military conquests are generals in army, right? And just for help prove that point, we're going to continue this video.
And 10 cohorts, plus a small cavalry unit, the Equites Legionis, make up the biggest Roman army unit of them all, the legion. The legion's symbol is the Roman eagle, borne aloft by the aquilifer. Cohorts in a legion are numbered 1 to 10. Cohort 1 is extra large with 5 double centuries. Its centurions are the senior ranking primi ordines, and the most senior of all is primus pilus, or first file. He can be promoted to be praefectus castrorum, camp prefect, in charge of the daily running of the legion. Outranking this camp prefect are 7 men, 6 staff officers, the tribuni, and the commander of the entire legion.
It said tribune, and when it was earlier when we look up the chief commander, it said the military tribunal, right? Shows say like let's call like judges, and then basically going to pass judgments. What?
The legatus. Back in Rome, he's a member of the Senate, the empire's 600-strong ruling elite.
Now the legatus, as I said, the legatus is also a part of the Senate. Now you have some Senate, some people in the Senate were basically responsible for laws and policies, and they also had some people of the Senate that were also conquerors, are basically warriors, as you say, or knights, a part of the equestrians, right? So continuing, right, it says attainment of honors, the novus homo, or self-made man established his family as nobles, right? Noble are thus, and thus they were noble plebeians. Now, as it say, self-made man. So you have if you watch the series Spartacus, you have the house of Batiatus, which basically they were a noble house because then basically they were on business them responsible for gladiatorial games, right? So what them used to do, them used to train gladiators, right, and make money off of sending them in the arena, and well renowned for having good gladiators. And in ancient Rome, gladiatorial fights, right, were a big part of the society. So yeah, big money was made up on that, right? That's why I even say Quintus, which was the son, always I try move up in the society, right? When I try get close to the procreator, which was basically Gaius Glaber, right? And everybody when align himself is because he want to move up the social ladder, right? So you have many people like that in a room where basically they weren't equestrians, they weren't patricians, they weren't but they come third in line. Basically they had a stable household, so to speak. They basically rich businessmen, right? Now citizenship of which they were grades with varying rights and privileges. Men who lived in towns outside Rome, such as municipal or colonies, might hold citizenship but lack right to vote. See Latinium. Freeborn Roman women were citizens but could not vote or hold political office. Right? But we have a look upon the Latinum, right? Latin rights was a term for a set of legal rights that was originally granted to the Latin people of Latinium, the land of Latins, who had not been incorporated in the Roman Republic. After the Latin War, and to the settlers of Roman colonies with Latin status, which colonies were dominated Latin colonies. So you have that place here, but also the municipal, right? It says the citizens of municipal of the first order held full Roman citizenship and their rights, including the right to vote, which was the ultimate right in Rome and sure sign of full rights, right? The second order of municipal comprised important tribal centers which had come under Roman control. Residents of these become full Roman citizens, although magistrates could become so after retirement. So they have some place where you have two types. You have somebody granted full rights and somebody never granted full rights, right? It says the term municipal was Latin term for a town or city. Etymologically, the municipum was a social contract between municipes, the duty holders or citizens of towns, right? A particular point. It says the distinction of the municipal was not made in the Roman kingdom. Instead, immediate neighbors of the city were invited or compelled to transfer their populations to the urban structure of Rome, where they took up residence in neighborhoods and became Romans as per se. Under the Roman Republic, the practical considerations of incorporating communities into the city-state of Rome forced Romans to devise the concept of municipum, a distinct state under the Roman jurisdiction, right? So the main part right here, so I was telling about immediate neighbors, but never in the city. And a key place was where Paul came from, which was Italy, right? It was not in the Roman city, but it was a Roman province, and basically they're very close to the city, right? It says the munera on citizenship and its rights and protection were specific to the community, no matter where a person lived, at home or abroad, or what his status or class. He was a citizen of the locality in which he was born. So the whole fact say Paul born in Sicilia, right, which was in Italy, and and he was a freeborn, that spark, and that's why I'm saying, him ask him, say, you want Roman? And he say yes. And we'll go back to that, right? Now we'll take a look right here. There's a short article again. Upper Roman classes, right? Senatorials, equestrians. We go through that already. Now you have the common, which are plebes or vols. That's why when somebody say a vulgar, it means say you're one commoner, or you behave, you protrude, you show the behavior of a commoner, right? That's why you have vulgar language. The common language basically was looked down on, right? It's a all other freeborn Roman citizens, right? Commons, plebes, vulgus, Slovakia. The special mark of dress for citizen males was a toga. All Roman citizens had the connubium, the right to contract to a legal marriage with another Roman citizen and beget legitimate children who were themselves Roman citizens. Now, this is how it say the Latins, right? Freeborns resident of Italy. This is the key point. Freeborn residents of Italy until 89 BCE, when they were altogether granted full citizenship, and of certain other Roman municipalities who had some legal rights but were not full Roman citizens. Former slaves who had been informally freed by Roman citizens were a special category, right? Now you have foreigners, all other freeborn men and women who lived in Roman territories, right? In 212 CE, most freeborn people living within the Roman Empire were granted Roman citizenship. Freed people, right? So you have people who will get freedom, right? Men and women who had been slaves but had bought their freedom or been manumitted. They were not fully free because they had various restrictions to their rights and owed certain duties to their former masters. Now, who became their patrons, right? So you have two types of freed slave. Those where the masters were a patron, you have a patron client relationship, and also those that bought their freedom formally. But they could become citizens if their former masters were citizens and they had been formally manumitted, meaning them buy them freedom. As you say again, Spartacus, they forgot Barca where they planned to buy him freedom for him and him Batman friend, and basically Batiatus basically put him to death, right? So you could actually buy your freedom, right? It says they were not, however, eligible for a public office. This was the one class it was not possible to leave, though the class encompassed only one generation. The next generation, their freeborn children, became full citizens, right? Just like in America, if you go to America on a green card, you have certain rights, but the rights are certain privileges, but limited, right? But if you be having a green card, have a child in America, that child become American citizen right away. Them become full according to the system, full-fledged Americans or full citizens. But you yourself, that's why you can get deported, and that child wouldn't get deported because they will consider that child a citizen. Well, the same thing back then in Rome. If you buy your freedom, you are a citizen, but to a certain extent. But your children and your future generation will be free. It says, i.e., members of the commons, though there was a social stigma attached to being a free man's son, and even that you still have a disadvantage of people say you buy your forefathers buy them freedom, and could even become equestrians if rich enough. So them could have actually move up the social ladder as we read before, become nobleman, and then generate more and more and more, because equestrians were basically people of the rich, right? Freed people had low social status and most were probably fairly poor, but it was possible for them to achieve some success in trade, and few might even become wealthy. They had no special distinction of dress, though their names indicated their status as freed people, right? And then they have slavery, where basically the slaves never have no right, them just do what the master tell them, but As what I'm reading, it says system of chattel slavery where human beings were born into slavery or sold into slavery through a war of privacy. Slaves were the property of their owners by law, but by custom, some slaves, especially urban domestic slaves, might be allowed their own savings, right? Just like in a Spartacus again, where as you say, a Barca, they basically save up the money where Batiatus give from the fights. Also, Varus, in a season 1, him basically in a debt, and him basically start sell himself to be a gladiator. So him could have pay off him debts, and then when him done, him say when I leave, right? With which they might later buy their freedom, or their masters could manumit them. So some mobility into the previous class was possible. Roman slaves were not racial based, and slaves had no special distinction of dress. Those slaves who had run away were sometimes made to wear metal collars with an inscription such as the following: I run away, capture me. When you have returned me to my master Zoanus, you will receive a reward. And hey, just like in a today's society, or back then, when you run away, they basically they used to brand and say you don't run away, or they used to chop off a foot or something, so people know, say, oh, this man was a runaway slave, right? And then chop off a big toe on them thing there for mark runaway slaves here. So you can see the similarities between today's society and ancient society. So with all this information going back into the scriptures, right? We're gonna read the part verse 28. It says, and the chief captain answered with a great verse 27. Then chief captain came and said unto him, tell me, art thou a Roman? He said, yea. And the chief captain answered, with a great sum obtain I this freedom. So basically the chief captain was a freed slave, right? As we read earlier, say you could buy your freedom. And Paul said, but I was freeborn, right? So seeing as we know where Paul come from, which was Tarsus, the city of Sicilia, he basically did enter the social class, right? Of the Latins, freeborn residents of Italy, right? Was granted full citizenship. So the whole fact say how Paul was a Roman, that changed the game altogether, right? So as we tell you before, Romans shouldn't be scourged, right? That was in Roman law, right? Then straight away they departed from him, which should have examined him. And the chief captain was also afraid, for he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. So the whole fact say how him tie up a fellow Roman citizen, him being a Roman, and the words are obtaining freedom, that shake him up, because he must say, if all this we go out now, probably let them throw me back in a slavery or something like that, or I'll get severely punished, right? And for sure that the status was everything in Rome. Let's play a short clip from a video, right?
Status clearly mattered to everyone in ancient Rome. Who you were affected how you were treated and how you treated others.
You will say who you were affected, how you were treated, and how you treated others. So even outside of Roman society, people have when they are Roman, people have to watch how them treat you, and when in Roman citizen, people have to watch how them treat you, or how you have to watch how you treat people, right? Because once you're a full Roman citizen, certain things you just don't do, right?
For example, the writer Pliny the Younger wrote about a dinner party he attended in the 1st century AD. He realised that the food and wine on offer differed in quality completely. None of the guests were being treated equally. The host was merely giving the best food to those highest in status.
So there you have it. So now you know why if they fear out hell you, because they must say, oh shit, me really just tie up one Roman citizen, and it go for show you. Paul said probably he never pick it up the first time, because Paul said, but Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus, a city in Sicilia, a citizen of no mean city, and I beseech thee, suffer me to speak. So he probably not even a pick up say, man, probably sip him, but hey, he tell us him be afraid because he even not even tie up, he should tie up Paul as a Roman citizen, and Paul knowing those laws, he use it to him advantage, right? It says, on the morrow, and the chief captain also was afraid, for he knew that he was a Roman, and because he had bound him. On the morrow, because he would have known the certainty whereof he was accused of the Jews, he loosed him from his bonds, and commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and brought Paul down to set them before him. Right? Now, this is Matthew 25, verse 25, right? It says, agree with thine adversary quickly whilst thou art in the way with him, lest at any time the adversary deliver thee to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. Right? Now, when I look up the word judge right here, right, for sure, so this I deal with Rome. The B says, of a Roman procurator administering justice. Now we're going to take a small look on procurators, and then we finish with Matthew 10, right? Now it's a I read down here first. It says provincial governors, a procurator, Augusti, often called the presidal procurator, i.e. a garrison or troop commanding procurator, however, might also be the governor of a small imperial province, right? Like, for example, Pontius Pilate was the procurator in the time of Yahushua. These provinces were governed, whose governor was appointed by the emperor rather than the Roman Senate. The same title was held by fiscal procurators who assisted governors of the senatorial provinces, right? In addition, procurator was a title given to various other officials in Rome and Italy, right? So you have the word procurator, basically our wide or broad spectrum, and never really one thing, as well as going afterwards. After the mid-century, as a result of Pax Roma, the provinces previously governed by prefects, right, who were military men who gradually moved into the hands of procurators, who were essentially civilians, fiscal officials, right? Egypt, as the special private domain of the emperor, was administered by the Prefectus Augustalis, remained the exception. This transfer created some confusion among scholars between dealing with Pontius Pilate, governor of Judah, who was often thought to have been a procurator until the evacuation of the inscribed so-called Pilate stones, which proved his title had been that of a prefect. Oh, so you have prefect and procurator. So as I say, sometimes the prefects got moved into the being procurators, right? Now you have different type of procurators. You have fiscal procurators who deal with the collection of taxes, especially in land tax, right? Collection of rents and land belonging to imperial states, management of mines, the distribution of pay to public servants. Like, for example, when Mary and Joseph, when Augustus Caesar, they called for the poll and the taxation, and Mary and Joseph, they have basically go back to Jerusalem for pay, for give up them tribute, right? Now, this word procurator says was a title of certain officials, not magistrate, in ancient Rome, who were in charge of financial affairs of a province, or imperial governor of a minor province, right? Like, for example, Herod, first when he was appointed king of the Jews, him basically they get put in place for as a procurator of Rome, right? But after a while, when Rome never pleased with them just give them a fort at the province, which was the worst part of Jerusalem, Galilee, where all of the zealots and things did, then give them the hardest part to manage, and basically leave the rest to Pilate, right? So it basically then they basically get demoted or in a small sense, right? So when it's in Matthew 5 and 25, say at any time thou shall be delivered to the judge, and the judge deliver thee to the officer, and thou be cast into prison. So for sure, say the Romans that dwell in the land at the time. Now this Matthew 10 verse 16, it says, Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves. But beware of men, for they will deliver you up to councils, and they will scourge you in their synagogues. Right? So this is what happened to Paul, yo. Them beat him, right? And then them send him to the Romans to get scourged, yo. But because he was wise as a serpent and harmless as a dove, basically him evade the scourging. And when you look up the word councils, right? Right, we can play.
Strong's G 4892. Synedrion. Synedrion.
And any assembly of magistrate, judges, ambassadors, whether convened to deliberate or pass judgment, right? So them do to Paul, right? Any session or assembly of people deliberating or adjudicating. The Sanhedrin, the great council at Jerusalem, consisting of the 71 members, vice, scribes, elders, prominent members of the high priest families, and the high priest, the president of the assembly. The most important cause were brought before the tribunal, right? Romans. In as much as the Roman rulers of Judea had left to it the power of trying such cases, and also of pronouncing sentence of death, with the limitation that a capital sentence pronounced by the Sanhedrin was not valid unless it was confirmed by the Roman procurator. That's why when them give up Yahushua, them say, yo, them tell Pilate to kill him, right? Because them know say, yo, he never inner them power to do that. And I same thing, when with Paul now, them handing over, them, what them said to him, say, yo, this man is not fit to live. So them basically they tell the chief captain, say, look here, I kill him if we go kill him, right? So basically Paul fulfill or exercise this precept of being wise as a serpent and harmless as a judge through the understanding of Roman law, right? So the final part, that's why it says Acts 22 verse 30, on the morrow, because he would have known the certainty whereof he was accused of the Jews, he loosed him from his bond and commanded the chief priests and all their council to appear, and brought Paul down and set him before them. So that Paul basically being brought before councils, right? And in the coming times and in the coming months, as this thing progress, the same things like these are gonna happen to brothers here, and worse. All the things will happen unto Yahushua are gonna happen to the brothers. All the things that happen to the apostles, right? In Acts of the Apostles are gonna happen to brothers. The prophets of the past. All these are the time where we are going now. Yo. So with that, we like to say all praises to Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the honors to the apostles and elders of Great Stone, and shalom to the brothers in the highways and byways pushing this word now, sincerity and truth. Hope your brothers were edified, the sisters, the believers, the helps. Shalom.